This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans, so meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. I'm your host, Shannon, and I'm joined here today with Angelo Ferro from Playably. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Shannon. It's great to be here. Excited to play some games.
Yes, we're going to play some games. This is all about gamification. This is all about games, and it's just fitting that we should start with the game.
Let's do it. I hope I know the game.
Beautiful. Okay, so this game is called Famous or Infamous. I like to create my games around my guests, so hopefully this will be something that will be fun for you. So what we're going to do today is, for everyone in the audience that doesn't know this game, it's invented by me and it's never been played before, hopefully, and I'm original. So
it's the first time. I love it.
So what I'm going to go into is, since you're very familiar with gamification, is the name of the game. I want to explain some marketing campaigns that have involved gamification in the past that have been kind of notable, some maybe more than others. And I want you to tell me, famous or infamous, do you think that these were like breaking, just beautiful examples of something very unique and something that really interrupted the marketing space? Or do you think that maybe it didn't do a good job, or maybe it did an opposite? It had a very there were ramifications to this, and that's basically the name of the game, and maybe what you'd change about it if it did fit in that infamous category.
Okay, cool.
All right, perfect. Starting with a really fun one. I don't know if you watched the documentary about this, but the McDonald's Monopoly campaign.
Oh, I love the game. Famous. But there was a whole documentary about it.
You should watch the documentary. It's hysterical. It's actually very well done.
Is the documentary about how people spent so much exorbitant amount of money because they rigged it because you had Park Place, but then 1,000 people got Park Place, but there's only one boardwalk? Is that the gist of it?
So no, it's actually so much crazier. No. I don't even know if I should reveal it to you. If you like documentaries, it's so well done. It's funny and it's. I don't want to.
Okay. Definitely. So it's called the McDonald's Monopoly.
It's called McMillions. That's what it's called.
McMillions. Okay, because what goes through my mind when you say documentary, it's like, how many people's lives were ruined because they did crazy stuff to
funny, but
McDonald's.
It's also it did ruin some people's lives, which is crazy. But
the crazy thing, I'm just gonna say it's famous, and then it still goes on. I remember when I was a kid, in the 90s. And I probably even started before that, but going when it was Monopoly time, and then we would go to McDonald's. I remember we would go to church on Sundays, and then we'd go to McDonald's, and then we would play the game, right? And then you redeem prizes. We get French fries or cheeseburger. And then I remember the part that stuck out is I always felt every year we got Park Place, right? And then you only need to match Park Place and Boardwalk to win the $1 million prize. So it's we're going to win this year because we have Park Place. This is before I knew, because they probably have to list out the odds now, but that's what I think of. It's kind of I feel that's there are more questions or just trying to babble on about how it's the first example of gamification that I feel a lot of people can relate to. But everyone's played Monopoly, and then everyone's, it's two American classics. I know Monopoly's probably made in America, considering all the capitalism and stuff. So
I think it is when people misunderstand the point of Monopoly, I think it is to point out the problem with capitalism.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely
But a lot of people are no. It's supposed to say that it's fun, but it's no. Monopoly isn't fun. Does anyone really have fun?
It's fun for certain. It's fun at the top earners, as is.
Yeah, exactly.
Tends to be the case living in America.
Okay, I definitely agree that despite the ramifications of the McDonald's Monopoly game, I agree famous because this is a notable historical example of gamification. I completely agree.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it was one of the first like quick service brands that was doing it. Yeah, for sure. Fast food companies to do it. And now there's also, I mean, nowadays, a lot of fast food companies have their own apps. Like Chipotle has an app. Chick-fil-A has an app. And so a lot of gamification is built into the app because that's a way to get people to keep coming back to the app.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about this because since I don't get to talk about people in the specifically focused on gamification in their field often, what do you personally consider to be gamification? Because I think it's sometimes debated, like, are rewards points gamification?
Yeah, I would say to me, gamification is really anything that's fun and anything that gets people to be engaged. And so Playably, which I'm a co-founder of, before I was in Playably, I was in mobile gaming for 10 years. And so our experience is we've been in the mobile gaming space and we know that engagement in games is a fun way to get people to be engaged. That's the name of the game. And so with a lot of the name of the game, I'm laughing at my own jokes. A lot of the brands and the agencies that we work with, it's because they have a product and they're, a lot of brands spend a lot of money to acquire a customer. And then, or they have an app and they want that customer to play the app. But then without a game or without any meaningful engagement, people don't really, like they'll download the app and they won't look at it again. And so games are really a great way to keep people engaged beyond that first purchase. And so I kind of think of it as, games can be as simple as like Monopoly. There's other gamification. I mean, it takes all types of forms. Like when we first initially started pitching Playably to the brands that we work with, a lot of times when I said gamification, they thought of like that spinner wheel that you see when you go on a website and it's like spin to win. And so we're like, oh yeah, it is a form of gamification, but the games that we do are way cooler and way more fun than that. And I think that's what sets us apart from our competitors.
Yeah, I think it is really cool that there's so many like methods of including gamification where people are interacting with a company that makes them, more likely to, because like, I think people really like to feel catered to and interested in something. And when it has an element of that, like it's more exciting to a client, to a potential client.
Totally. And so if you think of like, so some people think of quizzes as games. And so, we saw a trend, we've been in e-com since the pandemic. And so we saw a trend where like first it started with a welcome pop-up and then people were doing quizzes. So quizzes had like their day. And now I think people are kind of bored of the quizzes. And so what we do is we can take that same, getting to know the customer mentality, but we can do it in games. So we have fun games where we can like sort things, like interact with different products. And in a way, like you're learning more about the product, but the brand is also learning more about the customer. And then with that, all the games are collecting that data, so then we can use that data to personalize the marketing experience for them more.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely, it's an element of marketing that I think people don't really think about very often because it's something that is so seamless and easy to participate in that it doesn't seem like it's a ploy in a way that marketing sometimes is very in your face at times.
Yeah. So when you say that word ploy, it made me think of the spinner, where it's like the spinner, because we have a lot of conversations with, we work with a lot of direct-to-consumer brands, and then there's this tension between the VP of marketing and then the director of e-com, where like the marketing, the brand person hates the spinner because it's really tacky, but then the e-com person loves the spinner because it generates conversions, and we're like, you can kind of like, but it's like at what cost? So like the spinner works because honestly it works because it's shiny and it moves. So the human eye is like, oh, it's shiny, and then they spin it, and then they like win the prize. Most of the time it's rigged, but like they don't know that. So then, or some people know that, and then they get that dopamine hit, which causes them to convert. But the approach that we take is number one, our games are designed to match the brand. And so if you look at our website, we match the branding of the brand completely, but we also think about who your audience is and what you're trying to achieve with the game. So for some brands, it's really about the product education. So they have a product that's kind of complicated and people don't read anymore. And so the check-in spends are just getting lower and lower and lower, sadly. So if you can do a game to kind of like, tell the brand story or to educate them on how this product works and get them engaged because the games are fun, I think that's what we've unlocked. We've found a way to get people to shop in a way that feels fun.
Yeah, no, I really love that because I think that with the oversaturation of media in everyone's space, I think that when you have an interesting element to shopping, it definitely helps the cause way more than a lot of other methods because marketing is like, I think so many people see through it now. in a way of like, they don't want to feel like they're being targeted because everyone kind of knows they're being targeted.
Yeah, everyone kind of knows that they're being targeted and everyone feels like they're being watched. And so the way that we design the games is we think about who their persona is. And so we're working with a brand where their audience is older women. And so it's a marketplace for fine china. And so my mom and my aunt love Candy Crush. So like, oh, why don't we build a Candy Crush game that involves their product? And so instead of crushing candy, you're matching plates. And so that game it's so fun. I think the average user plays it like 5 to 7 times per session. So these women are having a lot of fun playing the games. And so we always think about like, what is a way that you can make the games like our North Stars, like the games have to be fun. Because if they're not fun, if they're boring, no one's going to play them. But if you are able to like, I think about, we kind of talk about like shoppertainment, where like the lines between shopping and entertainment, like TikTok, we kind of saw it with like the live video streaming, like people are like the home shopping network, but on TikTok. And so like the lines between like entertainment and shopping are blurring. And so we see this opportunity where games, if done, really tastefully, can introduce a product in a really fun way and also elevate the brand, but also just leave like, your end customers are having fun, which is something that like I think is unique. And I'm trying to tell brands like, these people are playing it like 5, 7 times. Like they wouldn't do that if they didn't like the game, but people are doing that because they're having fun. And so the fact that we're able to like instill fun in a way that hasn't been done before is like really exciting.
Yeah, no, I definitely would agree with that. I think it's also, it maintains attention too, because I think that that's a big thing with, especially again, with the oversaturation of media and marketing ploys. I think that a lot of people will go to a website and then immediately just leave, or like go to it, something, a pop-up or whatever it may be, and then immediately distaste, and then they'll leave the website. But a game is something that does the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, we see that across the board. Like, a lot of brands spend a lot of money to get that traffic to the website. And then I think usually like 60 to 80% of that traffic bounces right away. And that's because they saw an ad, they saw something on Instagram, they clicked it, and they go to the website, and then the first thing they see is a pop-up. And so that kind of feels very jarring. And so instead of showing a pop-up, just says, hey, give me 10% off for your email, what we do is we wrap it into a game. So like it's the same discount, but we say, hey, play this game, earn 10% off. And then there's a lot of, it's interesting because some brands will be like, the game takes more time. Like we time how do I say this? It only takes you a couple seconds to enter your email address, but to play a game takes like anywhere from 15 to 20 seconds. That's where we find the sweet spot. And so a lot of brands like, they've been conditioned to be like, remove as much friction as possible. But I think in this age where there's almost like not enough friction, in the sense that there's like so much content, there's so much oversaturation. And so having something that requires someone to like put some attention and like put in that 15 seconds of, it's not really friction. We call it, that's engagement actually. If you can get someone to do something for 15 seconds, it's so hard to get people to do anything. But if you can get them to like play fun games, it's so true. And we see it in the data. We're like, oh, these people are actually playing it, they're completing it. And because they completed it, there's a game psychology of like, they put in some effort, and so they feel like they've earned the reward. So they're more likely to opt into your email or your SMS program. And then because they feel like they've earned the reward, they're more likely to redeem it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because there's so many websites that I would like you immediately go to, and it's like pop up, enter your email, and like that is it feels almost suffocating at a certain point of that's constantly happening. That it's like, okay, I know I've been doing this every website I've ever been on. Most of the time I just click out of it. But if you have something that gets your attention in the beginning, then of course that's going to be something that you're more likely going to want to interact with further.
Yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned storytelling a little earlier, and like adding that to gamification. How does that technique really work? Because I'm trying to think about it. How would you incorporate the story of a business into a game that kind of explains it and also is interactive?
Yeah, so I think the key thing, so we have a team of game designers. So I think what's unique about our team is that, so we have D2C experience, but we have a creative design director who she has over 25 years of game design experience. And so she's been doing this for most of her life. And so she was actually in the arts. And then in the arts, her job was to make games for people to learn stuff about like art. So we always joke that we like to think of fun ways to trick people into shopping or like learning more about a product. But we're working with this brand. They basically sell, do you play tennis at all?
I do not, but I have played
Okay,
tennis.
I don't either, but they basically, what they sell is this, it's like a training tool that like shoots out the tennis balls.
Okay, yeah.
And so, yeah, so they sell one of those, and basically, a key kind of like pain point that they have is like people who are brand new to tennis, it's meant to be a training tool, but people who buy the product, like the first thing that they'll do is we'll have it at the most advanced settings. So if you're a beginner player, like a lot of times you get excited because you want to play tennis and maybe you just watch like the French Open and you want to hit the ball hard. And so people set the machine at like the hardest level and then they don't use it again because they're not using it correctly. And so what we're doing for them is like basically we're going to build them a game that basically shows you where to position the machine for what level you are. Because the intent of the machine is like, while it's fun to like hit the ball hard over and over again, it's really meant to help you kind of like improve your skills. And like I don't play tennis, I play volleyball, but like, you're supposed to be able to like play certain, I guess it's strokes or certain hits. So that's the intent of the machine. And so we're building them a game, which is, okay, after you've purchased the product, here's basically a way that will teach you how to use it. So that's where we incorporate some of the brand storytelling. Games are a great way. They're entertaining, but they're also great educational tools. Because what we find is like all this information's in like the owner's pamphlet, right? But nobody reads that. If, at the best, if like if they have really good like TikTok videos or like really good video content, they might watch that. But for most, it all goes back to attention. Like people have very low attention spans when it comes to like reading things. But if it's like interacting with the game that shows them how to use the product, that's where we're able to layer on kind of like the brand storytelling and like, here's what the product is meant for, but here's how you should use it, but it's in a fun way.
Oh, that's really incredible. I never even thought about it. Like even like an instruction manual could kind of be explained in a game, which is really, really cool because it's something that also teaches safety, which is something that's really amazing.
Yeah. It teaches you how to properly use it. And so we basically will be like, okay, if you start the game, we'll be like, okay, what's your level? Are you novice? Are you beginner? Intermediate or advanced? And then based off that, there will be different levels within the game that show you like, okay, put the machine in the right location. And then like, what type of hit are you doing? So there's ways that we're basically, it's kind of like it's cool because otherwise, they would just have these people that are just hitting it hard over and over again. But then they're not actually getting better at tennis because that's not how you get better at the sport.
That also keeps the interruption and the the negativity of like people saying, oh, this product doesn't work or this product is bad. Because they're learning before getting it. And that's like, and they're kind of doing it by accident.
Yeah, one of my favorite questions to ask the brands that we work with is like, what is something that you wish you knew? What is something that you wish people knew about your product? Or what are like the number one support questions that you get all the time? Because then I take that back to my team and then we think about like, what are some ways that we can incorporate that into the game?
Yeah, no, I think that's something that's really... It's so unique to be able to explain something in a fun way that's supposed to be maybe tedious, or someone would consider it to be tedious because it's not. No one wants to read an instruction manual. I will avoid it at all costs, unless I have to build something, and even then, sometimes I might try without using any kind of.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it just also makes me. So we're also working with this other brand, and what they sell is not like high end, but like they're much more expensive safety kits, medical kits. And so the price point's significantly higher than what you would buy at a Costco. And so, they have trouble like explaining why this is so much more valuable than what you would get at Costco. Because Costco just gives you like the standard like bandages, you might have some Band-Aids, you might have some like ice packs. So I was speaking with a CMO and he said like, oh yeah, the great thing about these kits is they have like tourniquets. And so he told us a story about how like apparently it was at a Costco parking lot. This is gonna get a little gory for a bit, but there was a Costco parking lot, and then this woman got sandwiched in between the two cars. It's in the Costco parking lot, but luckily one of their kids was in the back seat, so then they were able to get tourniquets. And so unfortunately her legs had to be amputated, but she was still able to survive because they had this medical kit in like the backseat of the car.
Wow.
So they have so many stories about like how this kit saved their lives, because it's much more intense than what you would have in like a regular kit, but it's because like there's all these other dangers that could happen. And so the game that we're building for them in the process of is basically like matching different scenarios. Like let's say you get bit by a snake, or like or like you have like a deep gash, and then you basically would drag and drop the items in the kit to solve that.
I love that. I was just thinking the same thing when you were explaining
exactly.
the brand.
So it's basically, it's like, here's the scenario, or like, here's an emergency scenario, and like, what are you going to do? And then you pick the med kit, and like, okay, here's what you can do. Because they have so many things in the kit. And it all goes back to like, there's so much product product in the kit itself that no one's going to read through. I mean, maybe the very small majority would read through and be like, oh, these are all the different items in here, and this is like what the problem that it solves. But if you can visually just drag and drop and show, like, okay, if you're, God forbid, you're in a parking lot, or like, you have a whatever sort of injury, there's a fun game that shows you how to use the product and educates you on the importance of it. And then the goal for that is also to justify the higher price point, because you basically, if you had, if the woman who unfortunately had her legs amputated, if she just had the Costco kit, she might not be with us today. But because she had this higher end kit, she was able to survive that accident.
Oh, that is amazing. I really do I love the creativity surrounding incorporating a game into a company, because marketing always is somewhat creative, but this is like a new world of incorporating, because it's navigating the kind of shortening of attention spans, which is
I think it's navigating, totally doing that. And I think the thing that we do really well that we haven't seen is that the spinner doesn't really incorporate the product, right? Because it just spins and then you get a discount. But we really think about like, what is some fun ways that we can incorporate the product. So that example I gave you with the matching. The company that we're working with, they're basically a marketplace for fine china. Do you have any fine china? Does your mom have fine china?
My dad does.
My mom does. Yeah, but I mean, there was this New York Times article about how it was like basically dying out, and that people don't pass it down anymore.
That makes sense. Well, honestly, I would say like I would not want my mom's fine china passed down.
You don't want Like the younger generation doesn't want it.
Cute, like if it was something that like I would want, I would take it if it was good quality something, and I'd also want it in my house. But I'm like, I don't want these like dirty looking leaves on my plates.
No, so it's totally, so then they're kind of thinking about so the campaign that they're trying to run is like, because there's this perception that like China's like, it's just meant for display, or it's like only meant for special occasions. And so we were thinking like, well, a game is a great way where you can kind of like showcase the products. So people are looking at different products, but it's also you're taking kind of like not the fanciness of it, but like the preciousness of it away. So like you're introducing product, you're making it more casual, and that also helps in terms of what they're trying to do as a brand, which is basically get people to use China more often and not see it as a special occasion thing. So having it in a fun game where like they're seeing the patterns and they're swiping and they're matching and they're liking it is a great way to kind of like push that brand messaging forward.
Yeah, it's also like there's like a psychological element to that as well, because you are you're changing someone's opinion on something based through a game, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, that's a great point you made, because when we were talking with the brand that has like the high-end kits, we were talking like, okay, so what is the kind of like, what is it that you're trying to, what's the emotion that you want, right? Because some of our games are just fun, and then like with like the China, the plates, it's meant to just be fun and lighthearted to make kind of like the product itself feel that way. Whereas for these kits, because like, do you want like a more like serious vibe, or like you're trying to like, show that like, hey, these can really save lives. And so for that, and then we take a little bit more of a serious tone. But you hit on a great point where like, it's very, like we're able to tap into like not only attention, but also emotion. Like we hear reviews about like, oh, my kid played the game and they had a great time. And then it's like, so you're able to, which I think is kind of cool, that we're able to touch people at the end customer and get them to feel something, which is what all brands want, right? They want to build that brand affinity. They want to have those emotions, but we found a way to do it through games that are fun and engaging, or that are engaging but it's serious. So I think that's where we're really excited about the mission that we're on.
Yeah, no, I was actually about to ask about that, because with gamification, I think comes like a level of sensitivity in incorporating a game into something that may be more serious. How do you go about that thought process when working with a company that may have maybe like the one that you were referring to with the medical kits, about how do I incorporate a game into something that may be a touchy subject to incorporate something fun into?
So I think for Milk It, the key was like, we wanted to make sure that we stuck to like, the key message is that these kids save lives, and that these kids have products that they can save you in scenarios where just a normal like Dwayne Reed kit wouldn't be able to save you. And so the game is still serious, but with the visuals and with the way that the game interacts, it will still be fun. So that's how we're able to kind of like deliver that hard message and still keep it like somewhat light and engaging. A lot of times when we meet with brands, there's this perception that games are just for gamers. But ask them like, oh, but are you on the New York Times? Like, do you play Wordle? Which is like, if you think about it, like the New York Times is basically like a gaming app with some news sprinkled in it. And so I think we do a really great job of just we're always thinking about who the audience is and the brand. So our games are never meant to feel like we just like stuck something on your website.
Yeah.
We always think about who your audience is. And so if it's an older audience, if it's a younger audience, and basically what we found is like there's gamers of all generations. And so depending on who your audience and who your persona is, we can find that right game mechanic to get that audience to engage. I actually have a great example. So we were working with Jones New York, which is a women's apparel company. And so we did a holiday campaign with them, and the game was Jeans Tinder. So basically what they wanted to know was they wanted to understand what the customer preferences were for jeans. And so we built them a game where you're basically swiping left, swiping right on denim. And then as you would...
love that.
It was so fun. But one of the concerns was with the Tinder mechanic, which but their audience is mostly retired. So it's mostly retired older women who are their core shoppers. And is this Tinder mechanic going to work? And then when we looked at the data, once they started swiping, they couldn't stop. So they really love the mechanic of swipe left, swipe right. Because it's something that maybe they hadn't experienced before, but was novel to them. And so we found that campaign had a great success because it felt personalized. It was a fun mechanic. They were looking at different products that they might not have shopped before. If you're used to just I only wear this type of jeans, maybe you don't even look at these other products. Yeah. And so that's another use case for our games where we're able to introduce products in a way that doesn't feel like we're just pushing a product on you.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And it is an interesting thing to learn that an older generation would have fun with a Tinder game, and I think it probably is because of I think that weirdly enough, an older generation, just like Candy Crush, it's kind of monotonous of doing something over and over again, and I think that Tinder, even though that app is for usually younger adults, even though I guess you can be any age to be on Tinder. More popular with younger adults. I think that the act of doing that, a repetitive motion, is something that is it still catches an older generation because that's kind of a game and, makes sense. So it's kind of cool that you find out you get to find out what kind of works with different generations through doing these kind of things, especially testing.
Testing with them. And a key thing that we do is that so our background is we came from a company called Unity, which is a game engine, and we were running the data analytics and machine learning team there. And so what that means is that we are game developers, but we're also data nerds at heart. And so when we launch a game, it's not like we launch a game and that's it. We're always looking at the data. And then based off what the data tells us, we strive to have high completion rates, high engagement rates. For example, we were working with this brand called Michu Pet, which is, do you have a cat?
I don't have a cat.
Oh, I don't have a cat. Okay, they have so it's a pet brand. They're popular in Australia. They're trying to break out in the US. And so they have a tofu cat litter, which is popular in Asia, but they're trying to explain the benefits of tofu cat litter to the US. And so we built them a game where you're basically grabbing the kitty litter and you're scooping it, and then you get a little pop-up that tells you about the benefits of the litter. Apparently it's flushable and it doesn't smell. But what we found is that the original game, which had a lot of education in it, was too long, and so people weren't completing it. And so that's because for their specific use, that first kind of game, it was a pop-up replacement. And so what we learned from that is that in the pop-up, when it's kind of the first time interaction on your website, perhaps, we intentionally shorten the gameplay, because what we want them to do is just learn a little bit more about the brand, get that little bit of dopamine reward hit, but then sign up for your email, your SMS program. And then what we're suggesting is once they've made a purchase and once they're a bit more engaged, using the game as part of your retention strategies. So having a longer game that you send in your email or someone send, or in a post-purchase flow, so that they've already bought into the brand and then they're willing to spend more time with you. That was a key learning for us. In the beginning, 15 to 20 seconds is about the maximum amount of time that we can get for someone that's new to the brand. But once they've already invested in you, then they're much more willing to, like, you know, they've already bought the product, so they're ready to kind of like learn more. Then we recommend having like maybe the same game but a longer version of the game with more levels, because at that point that customer is ready to engage at that level.
That makes complete sense. That's a great example, because I was actually going to ask, like, is there ever a point where you do create a game and it doesn't work in the way you want, but you learn something from it and kind of adjust the game for what your findings were?
Yeah, totally. We're working with this brand now. It's called Scout Organics, and what they do is they have basically kids bars. And so we built them a game for their direct-to-consumer website, which is it's kind of like a little bit like a retro Mario game where you're running around and you're collecting different bars, you're collecting different products. And so that game, it's gotten really great performance, but when we thought about it, the person who's buying the product online isn't the kid. It's the mom and it's the grandparents. And so while we see like a decent completion rates, we're like, actually, it might be better to switch out, instead of having the platform or game on the website, let's use Candy Crush, because we know that mechanic works really well for this audience, right? And so, but they have a retail presence as well. And on the boxes that you buy in the store, they have QR codes. And so there's actually one of my colleagues. Yeah, exactly. So then, like, instead of having the QR code drive to the product page, have the QR code go to the game, because it's much more likely that the kid's going to pick up their mom's phone and then scan the QR code and then play it. And so actually one of my coworkers, she had her nephew play the game. Yeah, I think he's like 8 years old, and he played it. He collected all the cookies, and like, oh, that was so fun. So we really think about if you can get like, and then it was like, oh, I think she asked him like, oh, does this make you like want to buy a thing? Would you want Scout as like your next snack? And he's like, yeah, totally, because he had a fun experience playing the game. And so we always think about, that's a learning of like, you know, thinking about who the customer is and where they are. And then it's an interesting case with like the retail offline use case that we're really excited about. Or like, how can you take, you know, that offline engagement or like that offline experience, but make it like an online fun digital experience, so that the brand knows more about the customer, but also builds that brand affinity and that brand awareness.
Yeah, no, I really like that too. And how you kind of changed it, because of course you saw the completion rate. So you saw that like kids were still playing it, or maybe even adults were still playing the game. But if you maybe eliminated the game entirely, maybe that wouldn't be great, because there'd be kids that would miss it. So you still incorporated it into the strategy, just not in that spot. Yes.
Yeah. So we're thinking about, you know, what is the right game for, I guess, the customer journey. So like whether it's the pop-up, or whether it's, you know, maybe it's in the post-purchase, or maybe it's in an engagement or like a retention campaign. We're always thinking about what is the right game for that specific placement. And then also like who is going to be playing that game, so we can think about what is the right game for that audience at that channel. Yeah.
No, I think that's incredible. I do like the idea of moving things around, because I think that when someone, a lot of times in marketing, like if someone sees strategy not work, then they reorient it entirely. But if there's some successes for like a specific metric for that experiment, then maybe you can still rethink it and incorporate it, just not in that spot, which I really like what you did.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we're always looking at the click-through rates. We're looking at the number of game starts, how many people are completing it. And then we always look at when we are kind of like, when we serve as a pop-up, we always look at what the opt-in rates are. And so across the board, we've always seen that, I mean, the games are really engaging. And so if we can make the game fun and we can make it engaging and people complete it, then they're higher opt-in rates. And then we also see when we pass back that data to Klaviyo or Attentive, that the audience that came from our games is much more engaged. So they have higher AOV, they have higher click-through rates. And so, which kind of makes sense, because they left that experience having fun, and they have a positive impression of the brand. And so that got them to spend, that got them to open the email. And so, I think we're just really excited about having been in D2C for, since the pandemic, like 5 years now, being able to kind of figure out like, we've been in the space for a while and we've had a lot of pivots, but thinking about like, okay, what is the thing that we can do that, because we have the background to do it, we believe we can do it best, but also be able to unlock engagement that hasn't been done before.
I think that was a perfect way to wrap up, because we're a little over time. Yeah. You literally just summarized exactly what you did at the end. So I think that was literally perfect. I had so much fun learning about this. I really appreciate how knowledgeable you are about this space, because all the examples, I love learning about new marketing campaigns and everything that's going on in the space. And this was really, really cool.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, thank you so much for joining me.
Awesome. No, yeah, no, it's like we're really proud of the games that we built. And if you go to our website, playably.ai, you can play. We have a game arcade, which has all of our games, so you can play the games on there.
I am going to do that.
Yeah.
That is going to be my after work special.
Yes, and then let me know what your favorite game is. I always love to hear what people's favorite games are.
I will.
And yeah.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. I hope that people are able to, all of your information will be in the bio of this video and is posted. So I hope that everyone can check you out, because this is very, very cool. I mean, gamification, I think, has always been incorporated in marketing, but to have a focus on it, I think, is incredible. And I'm really excited to see it more in the space. Yeah. So thank you again so much.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.